Welcome to Seltzer Squad, the podcast about staying sober in the city, with your hosts, Kate Zander and Jes Valentine.
Hey Nat, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Squad, I had Nat come to help me to talk about our new sponsor, Brainwashed Coffee. The mission of Brainwashed Coffee is to offer support to those struggling with addiction and inspire others to join the fight.
Sounds awesome.
They donate 50% of all the proceeds to addiction recovery. On their site, they're also extending a discount to the Seltzer Squad listeners of 20%. I am trying out the Guatemala Ethiopia blend and the Colombian decaf because I'm a half calf type of girl, and I can't wait to use my Brainwashed Coffee to start making lattes. So order yourself some Brainwashed Coffee. It's brainwashedcoffeeco.com. Use code Seltzer Squad for 20% off at checkout. Squad, I just finished my book list of 2021, and I wanted to remind you that if you go to audibletrial.com/Seltzer Squad, you get your first month free or a free credit, however you want to look at it. One of my goals for 2021 is to read 50 books. I don't know if I will be able to read 50 books, but I did start making my list. I have a lot of Quit Lit on it, and I'm very excited to start reading and listening. Majority of the books on my list are audiobooks. So if you're interested in that as well, please go to audibletrial.com/Seltzer Squad and sign up.
Hi, Kate.
Hi, Jes.
Hey,
Hi, Emily.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here.
So, Squad, today we have Emily Paulson, author, mom, recovery coach, does it all.
Sober
Thank
woman.
you so much. Sober woman. Oh, yeah. I mean, that should hopefully go without saying.
That would be awkward if I were on here and that was missing.
Literally drinking a cocktail.
All of our guests do so many things. Did we miss anything that you're about?
Yeah,
No,
that's
I think
good.
that's a pretty good synopsis. Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, first and foremost, we knew we wanted to talk to a mom because that's something that we haven't really delved into yet. And you're perfect because not only are you a mom of 5,
What?
which is insane to me. I literally don't know how you have time for anything else, but also you have a sober mom squad. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I am really curious.
I have a lot of questions. I don't even know where to start.
I
So many
didn't know where to
questions.
start with her either. Usually we have a format and I'm like, I don't know. There's so much to cover. So
I mean,
Usually it starts with the 5 kids and people are just like, why?
yeah.
Like,
or
why?
how?
I'm also like, when did you get sober in this process? Because that's
yeah.
a lot of children and that's a long period of time. And so maybe
Yeah.
let's start there. I mean, I'm sure you get much more in depth in your book about this journey, but if you can give us sort of broad strokes overview of kind of your journey into sobriety. And I think talking about your 5 kids will be probably part of that, right? I don't know.
I'm so stressed out for you already.
For sure. So back to 5 kids and et cetera. Okay. So drinking was always something that popped up in my life. You look back and I can see that it was a problem for a long time, but it waxed and waned. There were times it was worse, times it wasn't. And my drinking really kind of matched people around me. So, when I was a teenager, when I was in college, when I was a young adult, it's like I kind of kept up with the Joneses. When I started having kids, it ramped up. I was able to stop every pregnancy with no problem. It wasn't I didn't crave it, didn't think, oh, I can't wait till this baby comes out so I can drink. Like it wasn't, I didn't think it was an issue because of that. But yet every time I would, I had the baby, would go back to drinking, it would go back to the same place. One was never enough. And, I never knew when to stop. And so when my last was born, when my 5th was born and we were finally done, like officially surgically done, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, it was kind of like we are, I have my life back. I have my body back. I have my freedom back. And so it just took off at that point. And it's so socially acceptable to be a drinking mom. It's almost required. Like,
It's wild to
you
me.
can't- Yep. You need a vineyard to homeschool a kid. Ha ha ha. All those jokes. And I participated and I used that as like my fuel.
Did
So
your
that
mom drink?
really-
Was your
What, did
mom
my
a
mom
drinker?
drink?
Like my mom didn't drink.
I-
It wasn't like a thing when I was growing
No.
up.
Same.
No, and that, what's crazy about that is I used that as evidence that I clearly wasn't an alcoholic.
Sure.
Because I'm like, well, I didn't come from people who drank. My mom didn't drink. I mean, my mom drank at my wedding. That's the only time I can remember her drinking. And so I didn't grow up with it. It wasn't a thing. And it was a thing when I became a parent. It was almost like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, play dates have wine and it doesn't matter if it's 10 a.m. and oh, mom's night out. It's always wine, alcohol. It became part of everything. And I couldn't separate it. And again, I used that evidence around me, like, well, all the other moms were drinking too, and all of the school functions have alcohol. And gosh, I guess it's okay, even though I started to really like have a consequences at a lot of blacking out. And I did the whole thing where like the last year of my drinking, I made all the rules. Right? Like, okay, I'm going to cut down. I'm not going to drink during the week. I'm only going to drink on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Except then I'd break those rules. And okay, so I'm only going to drink when friends are in town. And then I break that rule. And every rule, I break. Every single one. And then I started having the bigger consequences. I got arrested. I got the DUI. I had fines. I had problems in my marriage. I had all this stuff happening. And I was in the hospital numerous times. And so finally those things that I said, but I haven't yet done these things, I started doing those things. And it was finally scary enough for me. And it was finally confronting enough for me when my kids were old enough to verbalize it. And that's
what age was that at?
Part. So my oldest was 11 when and what it was, I had the breathalyzer put in my car because of the DUI.
Oh.
And so up to that point, it was kind of like this hidden thing. It was this thing I did, this problem I had. It was like separate from the family, right? And then when I explained to them, like, okay, mommy had this offense and this is my consequence. And I'm gonna have to blow in this goofy thing every time you start the car, and it's the most awkward thing if you've ever had one or seen one. Oh my god! But then all the comments started coming, like, "Oh yeah, I remember, when you guys had this party at the house, and so, was asleep in the bathroom, or when you have a couple glasses of wine and you fall asleep early, or all of these things that I was like, oh my god, they were not missing a thing."
Sure.
That's when I was like, how am I going to in 10 years still be doing this? Like, this has to be enough. And I just, that point is when I was finally done. So I'm almost at my 4-year point now.
Congratulations.
Wow. But you guys are kind of same 4-ish years.
Yes. Yeah. Toddler sobriety is what we call it.
Yeah.
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 So what was the final, did you have like a bottom or a high bottom, or did you just wake up one day and be like, what, I need help with this? Was your partner involved in the decision, or even in like as an accomplice maybe?
So as an accomplice, that's actually a good way to put it. So much of our relationship was built on booze that we didn't even realize it. Even like at our wedding, we had a wedding video, and I remember this. So I was pregnant at my wedding. So I didn't drink at my own wedding. It's like one of the things I'm so glad that I was pregnant so I can remember it, because I probably wouldn't have. But we had this wedding video, and there were several people who commented like, oh my gosh, all you guys do is ever make out and drink. Because it was like, we went to breweries, we went, we did wine tasting, we did all those things. And but again, everyone else was. But I always remember that comment. I'm like, oh, is this going to be a problem?
I hate those comments that you like believe, where you're like, oh, I didn't realize that about myself, and now I can't unhear it.
You're like, why did you say that out loud? So he wasn't necessarily enabling in that way. It was more that he saw the things I saw. He saw that it did cause problems for me. He saw that I had consequences, but he also saw that I could stop. And like me, he had that belief that, oh, well, if you can stop, you don't have a problem. Oh, well, if you can stop 5 times for 9 months when you're pregnant, you must not have a problem. And used that as a justification. Yet at the same time, we'd go on a weekend vacation, and like, I'd have a fridge full of champagne. Like, that's not, it's just that cognitive dissonance, right? So he was very supportive when anytime I said, like, I'm going to cut back, I'm going to stop, I'm going to whatever. And he'd be like, yeah, sure, I'll support you. But then I'd have the 2 drinks, and it was like, okay, like he wanted me to be happy, right? And so if he thought I thought alcohol made me happy, he's like, whatever you want to do. He didn't realize the seriousness of it, and neither did I. So I'd had the rock bottom things that I thought would send me, to rehab or whatever. Like, I had the DUI, I got arrested, I was in the hospital, like I almost died, and yet still didn't stop. Like, I still was justifying it, and it really was just the waking up one morning, and it was New Year's Day, and the kids were downstairs. My husband was downstairs. I was hungover as usual. And like, I could just hear them, going about life without me. I had blacked out an entire weekend. And it's like
Oh no.
days were just gone, and blackouts were getting worse and worse. And I'm like, okay, this is what, like, my kids are, I'm eliminating myself. It was just finally that, like, it's only going to go to the point where I die. And that's not what I want. And so I just knew that was like the one factor that kept coming up was the alcohol. And if it was not that and I was wrong and it was something else, I'll figure it out then. But I knew that I could not go on that way any longer.
How did you deal with your female relationships? Because I'm assuming you had mom friends that were mommy wine people.
Mm-hmm.
Mommy wine people.
I don't know what else to call them.
True.
Mommy wine club.
Yeah, it's all there. Like it really is this idea. Like, I don't know how I'm going to parent without this, like, life elixir that you need everywhere you go. Honestly, most people were very supportive. In fact, my very, like, my closest, dearest friend, she was the only person who I kind of gave a glimpse. I mean, she knew I had a DUI and she knew all this stuff. And I had said to her before, like, do you think I drink too much? Like, she was the only person I really said anything to. And she's like, I don't know. I see what I see. And I see that you're uncomfortable with it. Like, maybe just go to AA sometime. Like, she was the only one who ever suggested maybe take that next step. And of course, at the time I was like, oh, like, no,
Mm-hmm.
like a room full of old men in a church. Like, that was my idea of it. And so she was very supportive when I said, I am going to quit. And so I had those people in my corner. Again, my husband was very supportive. And at first, pretty much everyone was like, yay, good for you. But we're still going to keep drinking. Like,
we're not going to change it all. Yeah.
No, we're not going to change it all. And I think there is that weird period where you want to keep things the same. You don't want to make it weird for other people. They don't want to make it weird for you. There's this weird period where, like, they don't want to invite you places because they don't want you they don't know what to do. And I don't know what to do. It's like that, I want to be invited, but I'm not coming.
Yes.
Like, thing.
Yeah.
And even in my marriage and stuff, like, we kind of had to relearn a lot of stuff, and learn how to do different things and go different places. And so there is that kind of awkward period. That being said, the dust definitely settles. And I learned to see the people who were just as close of friends as they were then, and people who still occasionally drink, or just are normal drinkers, and they see it for what it is. Like, they see how it can be detrimental. They've seen what it's done to me, people who've taken, like, a good look at their own drinking. And then there's people who I really realized I was just hanging out with because they could match my, ability to throw down a bottle of booze in, like, 2 seconds flat. It was just, there were those friends who at the heart of it weren't actually friends. We were just kind of enabling each other a little bit.
I remember
Drinking
the
buddies.
point, like,
Drinking
you
buddies,
always
yeah.
had friends that, like, you kind of knew what night you were going to have with, like, whatever party, like, person you choose to go out with. Like, okay, we're going to get really fucked up if I go out with X.
Yeah.
And this person doesn't drink as much. And then I wonder now, like, at what point in the process was I that for other people where they were like, okay, I'm going to go out for dinner with Kate, and, like, inevitably she's going to want to go to the bar afterwards, and then she's not going to want to come home from the bar, and, like, it's going to ruin my week, but I'll do it. You know what I mean? Like, I become that
100%.
liability, which, like, kind of breaks my heart.
Did you mostly drink at home? Because I imagine it'd be really hard to go out. Because I never really enjoyed drinking at home. I always like going out. So for me, it was really daunting to, like, think of one day having a baby and not being able to go out drinking. And I'm like, I totally was like, I'll probably just bring the baby with me. Like, I live in Brooklyn.
Wait, when did
Shut
you
up.
think this?
When I was, like,
Oh, okay.
my 20s,
Got it.
drinking and always, like, rational, having these, like, internal conversations with myself. So I was just curious, especially with 5. I imagine you mostly had to drink at home or maybe neglect your children. I don't know.
Or both. I mean, really, there was babysitters, lots of babysitters that I paid, that the next day they'd be like, I can't make out the number you put on the check. I can't. Seriously, that happens. Or
I believe it.
Like, crushed up ones in my pocket. I mean, there was a lot of babysitting that happened. My husband and I did trade off babysitting, parenting, but the reality is that a lot of that, the drinking at home and the acceptance of it, oh gosh, it's 5 o'clock, pour yourself a glass of wine while you're cooking dinner. It'll relax the stress from the day. Well, then what do you do with the rest of the bottle? Of course, you're going to drink it. Like, and once that wine matches that stress and the stress goes up, you need more wine.
What do you think that is, though? Like,
cycle.
We have, and I noticed in our Facebook group, we have a mom or many moms, but I've noticed that it stuck out to me that like it seems to be the witching hour of like after dinner, maybe when you get your kids in the bathtub and they get to bed is like when moms feel like they can unwind. But is it just habitual, or do you feel like it's necessary to unwind? I don't know.
I think it's a combination of all the above. I think we live in, it's like the patriarchy, right? Like women are doing too much always.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, this year has shown us that women are always doing too much because, when my kids had to be homeschooled doing distance learning, it's not my husband staying home with them, it's me. It's just, that's how we're set up. We're the default to everything. And so moms are already pushed to the max. So you've got that where the stress level is higher than it should be. We don't have the greatest, maybe self-care tools, or, we haven't been taught those coping mechanisms maybe. And then you also have this societal thing where it's this moms deserve wine. We have mommy's time out wine. We've got day drinking wine. We've got all these messages, ladies night out, and this idea that that's just what you do. And so I think it's both. And the lack of understanding of how bad alcohol is for you, which is something I didn't have. And like, I credit myself with being like, I was a scientist. I was like, I knew science and I know alcohol. I know
it's poison
of it.
Yeah.
Poison. And yet I ignored it. I willingly ignored it because I didn't want to know. 50% of Americans don't know that alcohol causes cancer. Like that's kind of a big deal. And so it's all of those things combined that you've got someone who's totally stressed out, who believes that wine helps anxiety, and who is told all around them that it's cool, it's fine, it's wonderful, that's what moms do, that's what you need to do as a mom. And it's just like a recipe for alcohol use disorder. It really is.
Hey squad, I wanted to tell you about one of our sponsors for 2021, and that's BetterHelp.com. We get asked all the time by the Seltzer Squad for recommendations to therapists and mental health resources. BetterHelp is affordable, private online counseling anytime, anywhere. Therapy is a major part of my sober toolkit. I'm actually going back to school to become a therapist, and I can't recommend online therapy enough. Through signing up with our link, you can take their short quiz and get matched with a therapist right away. Once they pair you with a licensed therapist in your state, they'll go over your income needs. So it's billed monthly, and it's based on your location, your preferences, and your therapist's availability. So you can cancel your membership at any time for any reason, but you get basically unlimited access to a therapist. You can have a live chat session, but you can also do like a text session where you walk away in between. You can do phone sessions, you can do video sessions. It's really kind of just depends on your level of comfort. So BetterHelp has a team of trained and fully licensed therapists that are in good standing. You can rest assured that you're getting a full credentialed professional. I actually used online therapy this summer when Nance was on maternity leave. I signed up for BetterHelp, and it's really kind of nice to just anonymously type to somebody. Through signing up with the Seltzer Squad, our listeners get 10% off by going to betterhelp.com/Seltzer Squad.
So you created the Sober Mom Squad. So can you tell us about that?
Yeah, for sure. So I was working as a recovery coach, and typically the women I worked with were women who identified with my story. Like they'd tried to set all those rules, and then they had those rock bottoms, and they're like, well, shit, what do I do now? And so it was women who typically already had some consequences. And then when the pandemic hit, all of a sudden it was women who had never, ever questioned their drinking ever, who were like, yeah, I mean, I drink. I thought I was a social drinker, or I had a glass of wine a couple nights a week with dinner. Well, now I have no bound. I'm not going to work. I'm working at home.
True.
My kids are home. I'm super stressed out. And now I'm drinking every single day. Every day is like a weekend and a weekday all rolled into one. I have no idea what time of day it is. My kids are home. And now, FYI, they're watching me, and I'm really uncomfortable with it. And I was hearing this over and over and over. And I'm like, I want to help. But by the way, now I'm home with my kids, so I have less time. And so I reached out to, other moms who I really respect on Instagram, who I've worked with before, and just said, like, what can we do? And let's help. And so we just threw together a Zoom meeting every Wednesday. Just like, it's free. If you are a mom, if you're a birth mom, stepmom, whatever that looks like for you, and you are starting to question your drinking, whether you've been sober for a million years, it doesn't matter. Anything in between, let's just talk. Because like, you want to talk about your Wi-Fi connection or whatever, you want to talk about, mocktails, doesn't matter. Just come, we'll talk, we'll emergency. And we had such a huge response. And from that, we created, a membership program where, you can get up to 21 meetings a week. We've got webinars, we've got parenting resources, group coaching if you want it. And then, of course, we have the free Wednesday meetings still every week. So people can just come and have a place to vent, really. And I think what I loved about this pandemic, I do say I love something about it. Like it's shown that there was a need there, right? There was a need for virtual services, for virtual programs. And I have to credit like AA, Smart Recovery, like all of these, in-person resources really pivoted and made themselves accessible through Zoom. And I think it just showed there was a need there because there really wasn't a place. There's places for moms. There's parenting blogs and forums and all that stuff for moms. And there's places for sober people. But there's kind of this sort of shame that goes with being a parent that you're never allowed to complain about things, right? Like, this is really hard. I'm home with my kids. Well, this is what you signed up for.
Yeah, you chose this.
Yeah, you chose to be a
You're
parent.
supposed to love it every single minute for the rest of your life.
Yeah. You're supposed to be in bliss and be blessed, and it's wonderful, hashtag blessed, right? Everything's wonderful. And like, you never have a reason or you never have, it's a weird, uncomfortable feeling that you can't complain about something, even if you can still feel eternally blessed by it. And it's just not realistic. And no one signed up for this. Like I knew what I was getting into with parenting. I didn't know what I was getting into with pandemic parenting.
Yeah.
Like, this was not on the job application anywhere with any child or any parent that's ever been born. So yeah.
And with 5.
Yeah.
And with
times 5.
Different age groups and
Yeah. And so just having a place where you can feel comfortable to say, I hate Common Core math, and, or my 3rd grader is being a dick today. Like it's a place where you can say that and not feel like you're going to get shamed for complaining about your blessings.
I think
also Common Core is crazy, by the way, just side note.
Oh my gosh, why?
I don't know what any of that means.
Something that they will truly never need in life. I saw like 2 examples. I'm like, I don't understand, like, these poor children. But anyway, as you were going to say, Kate. I
think about what you're saying and going back to what you were saying before about women carrying the mental load. I mean, even without children, like, the women have to carry the mental load of the household of like, does the neighbor have a problem with us? Did we put our trash on the street too early? Like, and I know a lot of that is my addict
projecting.
Yeah, it's my addict brain, like being codependent on the approval of others. But I think, I talk to my mom friends and they're like, I do like 45 minutes of mental gymnastics to get out the door with, my husband and partner and my kid or kids. And he just thinks that it all like happens flawlessly. And like, when we get to the store and my kid has a meltdown and I pull out the goldfish crackers, that like, he's just so amazed that like, how did these even get in the diaper bag? And, I think they just totally take for granted that we do all of this stuff. And moms have to remember, 500 things all the time.
Yeah, like, where is the Tylenol? Like, don't ask my husband where it is. Like, I love him, but that's just things that they're built into the DNA of being a parent. And it is from the moment you get up. It's like, I go and brush my teeth and it's like, oh, are the kids out of toothpaste? I better check. I go to give the kids their vitamins and, oh, that prescription is low. I got to fill that up. I'm walking by and the dog needs to be fed. And one thing leads to another, to another, to another. And it is never done. Like, there's this undone list constantly.
And like, God forbid anybody get a whiff of that, because then you're a bad mom, right? Like, then you're dealing with like a whole other host of problems of like everyone else projecting their mom shit onto you.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're kind of like, well, no wonder people drink.
Totally.
Like, no wonder by the end of the day, it's like, what other tools do you have?
Yeah, I would tell my husband, like, my mind is a prison. Like, sometimes I just want to be liberated from my own mind, like, and I think my drinking was a lot of that. Is like, we have a joke now where it's like, I don't really have a ton of releases for, I have healthier coping mechanisms, but it's not the same as numbing out. But I think the support aspect is what has helped tenfold of relieving those feelings, because you're not alone.
And I think that goes back to what Jessica was saying earlier about, and asking about, like, did you drink at home alone? Which I never answered because I was talking about all the other drinking I did. But you equate it to, fun, to support, because you're doing it with people, right? So then when you're alone, you still equate it to those things. And so when you do, you get the day done, and you get all those things checked off, and the things you don't get checked off that are still roaming around in your head, and you get to that place and the kids are asleep, and it's like, I've still got this bottle of socialization, of comfort, of it's not going to judge me, and I'm going to, and maybe not everyone has that like relationship with it, but even if you don't verbalize it, like that's what it is. It's something that you are able to do alone. It's an activity. It's just this really insidious thing.
I never looked at it as an activity, but that's so spot on.
I always thought of it as a reward. And then, you get sober and then you substitute food as a reward or shopping as a reward. And I was thinking the other day, like, what are the healthy rewards are not fun. Like, I don't want to have a hard, stressful day and then go sit and meditate for 20 minutes or go for a jog. Like, that's work and not fun. So I've been thinking about, like, what is a reward system for sober people that's not just addiction transference?
What I think about that, what I have just through my experience in talking to people and my own experience as a recovering person, that once you get to that place where you are not rewarding yourself with booze, you it's like that you get out of that need to reward yourself for things. Like when you can get joy from things as they are, you don't need to add that additional layer, because, think of the things we've added wine to. It's like book clubs. Right? I mean, that was, you went to drink and talk. No one talked about the book. I mean, at the heart of it, book clubs were started because you love to read and you want to read the book and you want to have a discussion about it. So if you can actually get joy from that, you don't have to add that. And so it's like we've lost the joy in the things that were already joyful because we've added this additional poison on top of it. Yoga and wine, everything, play dates and wine, like the legitimate
painting and wine.
Everything. Yeah. And I mean, a play date in itself was like a place where parents get together, the kids get together, the kids entertain themselves, and you can actually have an adult conversation. And instead it's become the kids get together and you get drunk with other people. And so we've lost, I think, the joy that was at the heart of it. And so if you can get back to getting the joy that you were looking for and the thing to begin with, then you don't need that reward at the end.
That's true. I think as women, we don't have any collective hobbies that we do together like men do. So I feel like we've now substituted drinking as like the top activity of what that is, because men go to they'll go watch a game. They'll go, they'll go to the shop and work on something. Like, I feel like they have so many more
fishing.
They have so many more hobbies than we are, at least societally, conditioned to have. Like, we're supposed to sit at home with the kids and not be out and doing, fun things. And so now we just drink and then drink while doing those, things.
Yeah. And then it becomes a drinking activity, right? Yeah. So I think it is just getting back to, again, not necessarily replacing like, oh, I was gonna go drink tonight, so instead I'll, do yoga because that sucks, right? Like, that's not necessarily
not a trade-off.
No, it's not a trade-off. But like, if I during the day have those tools, if I do the meditation and maybe I do exercise or whatever for me personally works for me, at the end of the day, I don't feel the need to numb anything. I don't feel the need to, and then I can look for like what used to give me joy as a kid. That's one thing you hear all the time too, is like, I don't know how I'm going to enjoy Christmas. I don't know how I'm going to enjoy football games. I don't know how I'm going to enjoy the all these things. I'm like, did you like Christmas as a kid? Yeah, you fucking loved Christmas as a kid, because every kid loves Christmas. Did you like going to football games as a kid? Yeah. Did you drink when you were a kid? No. And so it's just like rewinding and, I used to get joy out of this. It wasn't the alcohol. And going back to like the things that used to bring you joy and kind of cultivating those and just doing some digging on what are you really looking for? Because alcohol is the opposite. If you're looking for connection, alcohol disconnects. If you're looking for health, alcohol is not healthy. And if you're looking for whatever you're looking for, alcohol never solves truly what's underneath what you're looking for. Yeah.
What can you tell the squad about your book? Because I would love to hear more about your book.
Yes, for sure. So it's the book really was my like stream of consciousness processing of my recovery. I've always been that person who writes really strongly worded emails and then doesn't send them, or like I would have letters to my mom, and well, sometimes I do, like I'm Enneagram 8, some of that comes out. But I would write letters to my mom when I was younger and just keep them in my drawer, because then it was like I would get the feelings out and then I'd be like, okay, you know, and then I'd cool down, and so I've always got my feelings out. So I've always been a journaler. So I really, when I walked into like my first AA meeting, it was like, how the hell did I get here? How did I miss all these warning signs? How did I let it get to this point? Like, I'm an intelligent person. I'm a successful person. I'm a mom. I've got 5 kids. Like, how did I get here? And so rewinding, like, okay, this is the last thing that happened. How did I get there? This is the last thing that happened. And literally for the first 2 years, I just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And I would think of things. And when they came up, I would send myself a voice memo or whatever. And I would just write it. So I had this 2-year, like bajillion page stream of consciousness all the way back.
I think that's so smart though, also, because not only like do you get to turn it into a book that helps other people, because I think the beginning of early sobriety is like the most abstract for people to understand and the scariest to get into. I think like once you get a grip of time under your belt and a few like baby sober wins, then you're okay. But so many people are like, how do I even just get through the first 5 days, you know? And I think the fact that you captured that is so powerful, especially because you're a mom. And so many people don't even want to reach out because they're ashamed.
Yeah, there's a lot of shame. And I think there's a special shame for moms. You know, there's a shame in recovery, but there's a shame when it's like, how could you have done that with your kids around? And you guys know, like when you first get sober, a lot of that shame comes flying back, right? Like all of a sudden you remember all the things you blacked out.
Yes.
Like, oh crap. Like I got all this stuff, all the beer cans you were throwing in the back seat, you pump the brakes and they come like flying at you. And so
what a good analogy.
It's true. Like they smack you hard in the back of the head. You have to slowly like fish them out. And for me, recovery memoirs I just devoured them in early sobriety. I mean, I read so many books the first 6 months. And so for me, it was like, I was always looking for my story and parts of my story. And when I did finally get through that, like 2 years of just writing everything out and being like, wow, I like solved the puzzle. I figured out how I got to this place. And I thought like, there's gotta be one other person who has had the same story, who's like had a trauma as a child, or who's, you know, had not had a strong sense of self or whatever. And like all of a sudden they're a mom and they don't know what to do with all of this stuff. And so I'm like, if one person reads it, that would be great. And and also selfishly, it was like getting it off of my chest and getting all of this out of my head and having myself aligned as one person. Because it was always like, here's the mom who's got it all. By the way, she's also like passed out drunk at this party or whatever. Like I always had different versions of myself for different people, and having like one version of myself walking out in the world, like that was, my book was like the way to do that.
Yeah.
And that is available now. And where can people find it? Like anywhere?
You can find it anywhere books are sold. Yep.
Do you have an audiobook version of it?
Yes, there is an audiobook. Yes, which by the way is like the hardest, but like really most rewarding thing to do. It's like so hard to read your own
I bet.
I was going to ask if you did it, if you did the audio for it. Oh,
yes,
nice.
I did. I'm so glad I did it. But that's hard reading your own story.
Yeah, the audiobook Quit Lit was important for me. I felt like I had a friend or like I was listening to someone else's fucked up stories.
Yeah.
I prefer them too. I prefer the audiobook memoirs as well. It just feels, I can pay more attention because I have a really bad reading attention span. But like Kate was saying, it feels like you're like hanging out with someone kind of. Yeah. Kind of like podcasts, I guess. But
exactly.
Okay.
So Kate has a bunch of like rapid fire questions she asks everyone.
Why can I never find these? Okay, give me 1 second.
Why can I never find these? Well, I know one of the questions is a lot of people that listen are very newly sober, like super baby. And do you have any advice for people that are just like super new and like don't know what to do? Just any sort of advice for a newbie that's just trying out sobriety?
Yeah, I would say get rid of the idea of forever. I think that trips up so many people. It tripped me up, and it caused me to not stop for a really long time because I thought, I'll wait till after that party. I'll wait till after that event. I'll wait till after something. And so get rid of that idea and just really take it like a moment at a time if you need to. Like go one day, go another day, go another day. Don't
Yeah.
worry so much about what forever looks like.
I think that's a big one. I mean, same. I would do the same thing. I'd be like, well, I have a wedding coming up. So after that, or I have like this event, like you said, you're always making excuses because the word forever is so daunting. So I think that's very good advice. Did you find them, Kate?
I found them and I saved them in our drafts. So I found them forever. Okay.
Okay, great.
What's your favorite seltzer?
Oh my gosh, that's hard.
I know
have
that's
so
hard.
many. Okay, I don't know if this is considered a seltzer, but I'm going to say it because it's Hoplark hop tea.
Nice.
These are
Oh, I don't know that
so
one.
I've
good.
never
So
seen
it's
that.
tea,
Okay.
but it's brewed with hops. Like I am not sponsored
Interesting.
by, or no, this is not a paid advertisement. But
I gotta write that
hop
down,
tea
Jess. I
by
don't have
Hoplark.
paper.
Oh my God,
Right?
it's so good. It's my favorite.
Huh.
Okay. I feel like you have a great answer to this because you also have a squad. But how do you make friends in sobriety?
Reach out and share the things that, I never want to encourage people to tell things that they don't want to tell, but like share things you're a little bit scared to share because you will find your people, and it will be the people who surprise you the most, who are like, wow, that same thing happened to me, or I'm feeling that too. And you're like, I thought you were perfect. I thought you had a perfect life. Your Instagram's so perfect. Give little glimpses of what you're going through to people, and you will find the people who are meant to surround you.
That's really powerful, which
That's
is
good,
also
yeah.
part of my next question, which is something that like took off on a life of its own with the Seltzer Squad is our hot mess highlights, which is we just asked people to send us like stupid shit that they did when they were drunk. And we've gotten like overwhelming feedback that people love it because like I didn't know other people besides Jess and I peed the bed or peed our pants all the time when we went out. But as it turns out, a lot of us pee our pants and a lot of us are secret pukers. So if you have if you have a hot mess, we call them highlights, lowlights that you want to share, just like a quick story of something funny or not funny, but you know what I mean.
So when I got pulled over for a DUI, I was super confident that I was fine. And this is dramatic in the moment, but it's really funny now. And so the officer was like, would you mind taking a field sobriety test? I'm like, oh yeah, totally. He's like, do you want to take your heels off? I had 5-inch heels on.
No.
Like, no, I got this.
No.
I got this. Like I had that confidence, and I could just see on his face like, you dumbass. So I tried in these 5-inch heels to, walk toe to heel. And then I finally had to say, do you mind if I take them off? Yeah, not my finest hour.
Oh my God, that is a good one. I love, we all feel very confident when we're like, in our last episode, there was a bull rider who jumped to the front of the line, was hammered, got on the mechanical bull, and then passed out.
God.
Like, squad, if you're listening, you're not alone in any of these stories.
You're not alone, no.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Where can we find you online? Where are all the places?
Yes, all the places. Okay, so Instagram, Highlight Reel Recovery. That's where I am probably the most often. You can find Sober Mom Squad at sobermomsquad.com. If you're a mom, we would love to see you. And then my own personal website is emilypaulson.com.
Love that.
Perfect.
Squad.
And we'll put all of that in the show notes.
Definitely. And any mom squad, Seltzer Squad moms, join those free Wednesday night meetings and report back.
Yeah.
Jess and I
know
aren't
a lot
moms.
of people are looking for meetings. Alternative
we'd love to
meetings.
have
So
you.
that's a great idea.
Well, thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Well, thank you so much. I'm
Thanks you guys for having me.
still blown away that you have 5 children. So
Yeah, me too. Every day.
Until we meet again, Jess.
be nice to yourself.
And don't forget,
Hangovers suck.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast. Every review helps other listeners find us. Music by Dead Go West. Art by Kate Sander. For show notes and resources, check out seltzersquad.com.